Alright, so in this next video, we're going to go ahead and look at questions 4 through 7. And this is where we have a little bit more multi-step equations. We have variables on both sides, fractions, distributing of a negative. So a lot of fun stuff going on here. When we first take a look at question 4, I see my equal sign, and I'm going to go ahead and draw my line through the middle because once again, that reminds me when I start moving terms from one side to the other, I have to use that inverse operation. When I'm looking at this, I see 5 minus the sum of x and 3. So this 5, because it's not immediately in front of my parenthesis, I'm just going to bring it down. I'm not messing with it yet. But immediately in front of the parenthesis, I do have a negative. So this is like multiplying everything inside by a negative 1. So we have a negative 1 times x gives us a negative 1x. Negative 1 times 3 is a negative 3. I'm going to bring down my equal sign. This negative 1, there's nothing, we're just adding right next to it, so I'm going to bring that down. This 2, because it's directly in front of that parenthesis, this positive 2 is going to be multiplied to everything inside. So this would be 2 times x, which gives us a positive 2x. So I went ahead and put my plus sign. And then 2 times negative 3 is negative 6. Next, we want to go ahead and combine our like terms. So on the left side, that would be my constants of 5 and negative 3. So 5 minus 3, because you always take the sign in front. This becomes a 2. My negative 1x is still there. There's nothing on the left side it can be combined with. Bring down my equal sign. Over on the right, I have a negative 1 to combine with a negative 6. And so this, I do have a lot of students have issues. This negative 1 is what I type into my calculator. And then I have another, this would be now a minus 6. I get my negative 7. So I bring my negative 7 down. I'm also going to go ahead, since these were taken care of, bring down my 2x because I still have that. Now, I want to get my variables together on the left side. And so this positive 2x, I'm going to move by taking its inverse, so minusing 2x on both sides. When I do that, my negative 1x minus 2x becomes a negative 3x. And this 2 is still there. I'm just going to bring that 2 down. My equal sign, this negative 7 is still there, and these 2x's cancel each other out. Next step is to move my 2, subtract 2 on both sides. This will leave me with negative 3x equals negative 9. And then the last step of breaking it apart is going to be to divide everything by that negative 3. So this will be x equals a positive 3. And if you saw the videos before, you can always take this number, plug it back in to make sure you have a true statement. Okay. All right. Taking a look here next at question 5. I don't see any parentheses, but there are some like terms that need to be combined. And the first set would be that 25x minus 12x. So when you take 25x minus 12x, that's going to leave you with 13x. Bring down my plus 6 and my equals negative 20. So now I need to move my 6 so I can have my 13x isolated. So this would be minus 6 on both sides. This comes out to 13x equals negative 26. And then in that last step, we divide everything by a 13 so we can get the x by itself. So these reduce out to a 1. So we have a 1x, or just x, is equal to a negative 2. And then once again, at any point when you're solving these, to help you with your arithmetic, if you weren't quite sure, you can always type it up into your calculator to confirm. And then 2, since you're watching a video, you can always pause or rewind. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and talk about here question 6. This one has fractions. A lot of times I'm noticing we try to stray away from fractions whenever we can, but they're really not that bad. So it's the same rules. Because I have these parentheses, I'm going to need to distribute. I need to multiply that negative 1/2 to both the 4x and the 6. And if you're not quite sure how to multiply, use the calculator. To get a fraction, it's control divide. And I can see the outline of my fraction. And so now I'm going to go ahead and put that negative 1/2, and I'm going to multiply it by 4. Now I'm just putting the 4. Remember, we don't put letters in on this screen. It comes out to a negative 2. So negative 1/2 times 4x is negative 2x. Same thing, control divide. I get my negative 1/2, and I'm going to go ahead and multiply it by my x, or excuse me, by my 6. I get my negative 3. The 1/2, the negative 1/2, and the 6 didn't have any variables, so I don't have any variables here. Now, we do the same thing on the other side, except now our fraction is 1/3. So same thing, if you're not quite sure what 1/3 times 9 is, it's all good. Put in your calculator. Control divide gives me my fraction of 1/3, and I'm going to multiply it by the 9. I get a positive 3. I also need to multiply by that negative 3x. So control divide, get my fraction of 1/3 times negative 3, I get a negative 1. So this would be a negative 1x, or just a negative x. Now, this looks a lot better. I still want to get my variables both on the left side. So I'm going to go ahead and add x to both sides. Now on the left, my negative x and positive x cancel out. But over here they don't. So negative 2x plus 1x is a negative 1x, or negative x, minus 3 equals 3. And these are canceled out. Add 3 to both sides. These cancel out, but over on the right they don't, because it's a positive 3 plus another 3, which gives us a 6. But that 6 is equal to a negative x. Now when we're solving, we want that x to be positive. So to get this x positive, I need to divide both sides by a negative 1. When I do that, I am left with x equals negative 6. Okay. All right, last one here. We do have another set of parentheses, and it's got a negative out front, so that's okay. Remember, it's the same steps. This negative 2 is going to be multiplied to the 3x, which gives us negative 6x. It's also going to be multiplied to a negative 7. Negative 2 times negative 7 is a positive 14. Always use your calculator if you're not sure. The rest, that equals 4x plus 9, is still there. I want to get my variables all together on the left-hand side, so this 4x is positive. The inverse would be to negate it, to subtract it from both sides. When I do that, negative 6x minus 4x is negative 10x. You can always use your calculator to help you. Bring my plus 14 down, equals, my 4x's on the right cancel out, but I am left with a 9. Next step would be to subtract 14 from both sides. 14's on the left are gone, but that leaves me with negative 10x equals negative 5. Last step would be to divide everything by negative 10. And when I do that, I am left with an x equals positive 1/2. All right, good job. Let me know if you have questions.